These films scared the shit out of me. So it takes a lot to actually scare me these days. I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of horror films, so it's rare that a film comes along that actually does a very good job at scaring me. So I put together a list of 4 horror movies that I don't think many people talk about that terrified me. So first up we have Mr. Jones. So this found footage horror movie came out in 2013, way before the whole Slender Man thing blew up. Now, if Slender Man is your vibe, if you really dig that story or stories like Slender Man, you will really like this film. The movie centers around 2 filmmakers who are on the search for this urban legend, this figure known as Mr. Jones. The movie came out right as found footage was getting really popular, and it did a bloody good job at scaring me. Next up we have Whistle and I'll Come to You. So this is a British horror that was adapted from a story written by M.R. James. If you love gothic horrors, if you love old school British haunted house movies, you will really like this. The original story was written in 1904, so this has a real classic, almost gothic-esque feel to it. So this movie stars the legend John Hurt. He's an elderly guy who's recently put his old wife in a old people's home, and he decides to go on a little vacation by himself in this old hotel that him and his wife used to go to when they were younger. And even though that this hotel is out of season and he's more or less the only person staying there, at night things start to come alive, and it is truly old school horror at its finest. And there is one scene in particular in this film that really got me. Trust me, if you really love old school classic British horror, you will really like this. Bouncing back to found footage, we have The Last Exorcism. So me and possession horror movies have had a bit of a love-hate relationship. Having my favourite movie as The Exorcist really holds my standards quite high when it comes to possession horror. And 9 times out of 10, it goes spectacularly wrong. They can't seem to get out of this cliched ripping off The Exorcist type of thing. But The Last Exorcism is different. It centers around a priest or a preacher who has seemingly lost his faith, but he's going around performing these exorcisms, knowing full well that nothing is happening, and he's fabricating the whole thing himself in hopes that these people do get well again. He believes that they are truly just mentally ill, and through his performance they can get better. But when he encounters this specific possession case, his faith is tested. I love the fact that this is a found footage movie. I think it really separates it from a lot of possession horror movies that were made at the time and are being made now. Found footage is creepy anyway. There is something about that format that really just gets under my skin. And then when you combine that with a very good, uncliched possession movie, you've got a winner. This is up there with some of my favourite possession horror movies for sure. And finally, the movie that started it all off for me, one of the first movies I ever talked about on TikTok, is Lovely Molly. Lovely Molly was released back in 2011, and it combines both normal narrative storytelling with found footage. It's about a newly married couple who move back to the wife's family home, and it's not long after they move back into this house that things start going wrong for Molly. We're unsure, but we assume that something terrible happened to her in that house when she was younger, something that she suppressed for years and years under a blanket of addiction. But now she's back in this house, all of them old traumas are coming to the surface again. This movie is not only terrifying, but it is damn right disturbing as well. There were certain points throughout this movie where I was watching it through my fingers, and that is rare for me. Now, I recently rewatched this movie again, and it holds up. I think it's aged quite well. And while a lot of the movies on this list I can pick faults in somewhere along the line, I don't really have anything bad to say about Lovely Molly. I know that this movie does divide people, but I really love it. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and I think that everybody should watch it.
The Lady That's Whistling. So this story comes from my cousin. We are from Guatemala. So my cousin tells me this story that happened to him on his way to our grandmother's house one night. He was on the bus to her, and it's about 1 a.m, the last bus of the night. He gets off the bus and the streets are quiet. He's walking and he hears footsteps behind him. He just keeps walking, then he hears someone whistling. He keeps walking and then he hears it again. So he does it back. And he hears a woman giggle. He keeps walking and she keeps whistling and he does it back. He gets to the door of the grandmother's house and hears her whistling again. He does it one last time before getting the keys out to the door, and just then she giggles and he feels her finger go down the middle of his back. He gets inside quickly and then remembers that he is sleeping in the hammock that's out in the back porch that night. He said he covered himself with a blanket and went straight to sleep out in the back porch. No, I would have slept inside on the floor. There's no way you can pay me to go back out there and sleep in the hammock. The fact that he whistled back too, oh my god. By the way, this story comes from Jacqueline Carranza. Thank you so much for sharing the story with me and letting me share with everybody else.
Have you heard of the dancing plague?
No.
Listen to this. It happened in 1518 in a town in France. France.
Oh, oui, oui.
This lady woke up one day. She was just dancing in the middle of the street. But there's no music. She's just dancing. And she literally couldn't stop dancing.
Oh my gosh.
She was having convulsions?
And the only time she stopped dancing was when she was so physically exhausted that she would collapse. And as soon as she would wake back up or gain consciousness, she would start dancing again.
Oh my gosh.
And her feet were like starting to get bloody and stuff because she couldn't stop.
What is happening?
Listen. And then other people started dancing.
Yeah.
And it turned into like over 400 people just started dancing.
Oh no.
For a month.
This is real?
This is 15 people a day were dying from it.
Oh no.
This is crazy.
They couldn't figure out, but there's people literally dancing from, it started in July and it didn't stop until August.
This cannot be real.
It's very real. People were dancing and screaming in pain because they couldn't stop.
That is the most horrifying sight.
It was a psychosomatic something.
There was this mom who just had her kid and she was waiting for her kid to say her first words. One day in the kitchen, her dad was like, she's mumbling stuff. You gotta come here to the living room. Her kid mumbles a bit. She goes, mommy's eyes. In like a mumble. They're like, oh, laughing it off, mommy's eyes. The next morning, the mom goes to work. She gets in a fatal car accident. She gets rushed to the hospital. She still has a heartbeat though. The dad and the child are both waiting in the waiting room. When the nurse opens the door to show them the mom, guess what the kid says? It was mumbled, mommy's eyes. Oh, she got blinded? No. Remember, she still has a heartbeat, right? She points at her mom. Mommy died. Then 2 seconds after,
have you also heard the theory that the Apostle John that wrote Revelation, that he's never died? And it's because
I thought he died of old age.
No, it doesn't say that. Because of the things that have happened when the apostles came to Christ and they're asking like how they're going to die or something like that. He says, you'll be crucified, you'll be killed in my name. But then they're like, well, what about John? But like he was tortured. Like there was a story proven that one of the ways that they tried to kill him was lowering him in a vat of like boiling oil and
I
stuff.
had heard that, yeah.
And he survived, and then he was sent to the island of Patmos, and that's where he wrote Revelation, but never mentioned that he died. But who knows?
Same thing with Jonah.
But that'd be pretty dope if he was like taken up like how
That'd be super.
Elijah and Enoch.
Because he was the one whom Jesus loved.
Made that very clear.
Do you think James's brother is just like,
Okay.
he's literally my brother?
We get it.
I had a thing. I had like a fan theory about a Christmas movie.
Okay. Let's hear it.
There's two of them, and they're both from the movie Home Alone.
Nice.
Home Alone. The first one is my favorite one. Is that John Candy is the devil in that movie.
I wasn't gonna make a video today, but I could not get this story out of my head. I told it to my mom yesterday, and I swear I get chills every time I say it. If you're a cat lover, you might want to hear this story. But maybe not in front of your cat. Or maybe yes. Maybe yes? So there's a couple who recently got married and they've moved in together. One of the ladies says that her entire life her mom has instilled in her like the love of pets, and she's always saying that she's big on energy, and she always gets the best energy out of her cats. So she has this particular cat that she found. She likes to say that the cat adopted her, not that she adopted the cat. And she says she's always had really good energy with this cat. So one day she was having a really hard week, and she was in bed with her wife, and the cat was there with them. She started talking to her wife about everything and how her energy has been low, and she started crying because she was really emotional. Her wife tried to console her the best she could, and she started to feel a little bit better. She ended up telling her wife, oh my god, I love you so much, thank you for always making me feel better. And her wife's like, I love you so much too. So they're getting ready to get to bed, and her wife ends up going to the restroom that is in their bedroom, and she's still there, and the cat is on the bed with her, and she starts looking at her cat like, oh my god, she was about to tell the cat, I love you so much. And that was when her cat tells her, te quiero mucho. Translation, I love you so much. She said that the second the cat said te quiero mucho, she was like, I just fucking heard that in my head. This is not real. However, her wife comes out of the restroom and looks at her and says, did the cat just say te quiero mucho? She said that in the moment she was so shocked, she was a little scared, and the only thing that came out of her mouth was, ya sé que me quieres, pero no me lo digas otra vez. Which means, I know that you love me, but please don't tell me that again. She said that she couldn't stop staring at her cat, and her cat never said anything again. However, that same night, she could not sleep. And remember I told you that she was all about energies? Well, the whole night she just had like this really bad feeling, and she was laying in bed and the cat was next to her, and she just couldn't fall asleep. Now, she says that she doesn't think that her cat is evil or like something different, but I think that she got scared because her cat talked to her. Come on, like how many of us would react any differently to that? However, I do know a lot of cat lovers who would wish their cats would talk to them, so I don't know, maybe some of y'all would be so happy to hear that. Anyway, how would you react if your cat talked to you? I mean, I feel like at least the cat said, I love you. Like, it wasn't like, I'm gonna kill you in your sleep. After that, though, I probably start thinking about everything I've done in front of my cat. Like, what if I changed in front of my cat? Or what if I went to the restroom in front of my cat? And yet, the cat still loved her so much. Oh my god.
Look at all the crop circles.
Well, they talk about that a little in the Y-Files with crop circles of
do
like
they?
it being like code.
Yeah, because there's this one instance where they literally made their own human code, but it basically gave like a history of like all of these things. Like, if you need to know about us, here's our code.
And they beamed it up to space.
And then years later, right next to the satellite that sent out that message is a crop circle that matches the same diameter and everything of our original one. Overnight, it happened. Their code, but it matches our pattern and everything like that. And so it's just like, what does that mean?
Very good.
Yeah.
A farmer on his tractor.
No, that's
It's just as motivating.
You need to watch it, Larry.
I'm telling you.
Because one thing, here's just one example.
Yeah.
It's typically in wheat fields, right?
Okay.
But if man does it, the stalk snaps. But these crop circles, they're bent.
There's ones that were basket weaved. You cannot do that. Like, it's physically impossible. There's videos like of a one dude who literally got it on camera, and literally just a flash of light, and then boom.
Shut up, no one.
There's a crop circle right there.
All athletes had to perform naked in the first ever Olympics.
Why?
I don't know. I had no idea. Not only they were naked, they were covered in oil. And you know how when they're on track and if you have a false start, whatever, they don't have back then. Oh yeah. They would you in like they would have people on the side ready to punish you if you cheated, whatever. They used to slaughter hundreds of oxen for the Olympics as an offering to Zeus. That's like their sacrifice. The OG Olympics is a lot different.
It was crazier, huh?
It was way different. And most of the sports were combat, wrestling, boxing, all that stuff. What they would do, they would have no weight classes. So you just have like the biggest people go against each other.
Here are 5 scary horror TV shows for you to binge watch if you're looking for something new. Now, before we get into that, if you love all things horror, all things spooky just as much as I do, be sure to hit that follow button. Castle Rock is a psychological horror series, and it's set in the Stephen King multiverse. You heard that right, Stephen King. It combines the mythological scale and character storytelling of his work. And the result of that is this epic series right here. It's unsettling, it's creepy, you can watch it on Hulu. Channel Zero follows a man who seems to be the only one who remembers a specific TV show from his childhood. Nobody remembers it but him, and it played a role in some nightmarish events from his childhood, including the disappearance of his younger brother. He returns to his hometown to look for answers, and these nightmarish events begin all over again. This show is suspenseful, it has a nice creepy vibe to it, check it out on Prime Video. Then the Scare follows a detective who is assigned to a case that involves a mysterious string of murders, and the deeper she digs into this case, it's clear that a supernatural entity is responsible for it. This is part of an anthology series. This is the 2nd season for them. This season was just crazy as hell. well. It has great acting, a lot of great scares in here. Also available on Prime Video. Lizzie's Story is another TV series based on Stephen King. It follows a widow as series of disturbing events begin to revive memories of her marriage to her late husband, and its memories surrounding the darkness that plagued him. This only has one season, so you can get through this one pretty quickly. It's a thorough ride. It stars Julianne Moore. This one is also vibey, it's creepy. Again, it's based on Stephen King, so anything that's based on Stephen King is mostly a banger. This one's available on Apple TV. And of course, we can't do any list like this without mentioning the scariest horror TV show of all time, The Haunting of Hill House. And it follows siblings who grew up in the most haunted house in the country. They're adults now, but they're forced to go back to the house and confront all of the ghosts of their past. When I tell you that this show is scary and it has some of the best jump scares that you'll ever see, take my word for it. It has a great mood, a great vibe, great storytelling, great characters. This is a show that you definitely want to see if you haven't already. It's available on Netflix.
This person started to see post-it notes in their house that had writing on them, but it wasn't his writing.
Yo.
And it's because they're post-it notes that would be predicting what he had to do. I know you're gonna take out the trash for this time.
Whoa, stalker.
Whoa. So what he did, he put a camera and left it on 24/7 just to see if anybody came into his crib, right? When he went to go check the computer, all of the files were deleted. And there was more post-it notes. He wanted to like ask his neighbors and stuff, like, is something going on? His neighbors told him, there's been post-it notes all over the building. So the guy's starting to think, yo, is somebody sneaking into my house?
Wait, I'm getting scared.
Surveilling him and trying to stalk him. The guy was like asking Reddit, like, what do I do? And one of the Redditors said, take a picture of your room real quick. So he sends the picture and the answer is a crazy plot twist.
What is it?
Somebody else commented, I think you need to go to the hospital.
What?
Because from the bedroom, and since he's in Boston, they realized his bedroom was so small and there's no ventilation. His room was being filled with carpet.
So for today's drink,
¿Qué es esa cosa, Dios mío? Es una persona. No, no es una persona. Es una persona doblada.
oh my fucking god, I swear to god, this thing just fucking looked at me. Oh my fucking.
Flash is on. Alright, let's take a look. What do you think's in there? I don't know. I guess nothing.
Did you know after the Civil War, 100,000 Confederate soldiers that moved down to Brazil, and they still have a city in Brazil, and it's called Americana?
Yeah.
100,000 Confederate soldiers went down to the south of Brazil to say, like, hey, we're going to keep the South alive in a new country. Every year, they have a festival commemorating the Confederate soldiers.
It's crazy.
No!
That's in Brazil.
Stop!
And apparently they said the city's actually nice. They had no idea, like, there's some people that have went there and said, we had no idea that's what the history of this town was, but it's actually a pretty nice city.
Apparently, like, the older people in Americana, Brazil, they have like a combination of a southern accent and they like roll their R's. Like, Brazil. Yeah, we live in Brazil.
That's
It's crazy. But they said, and they started planting like tobacco, cotton, all this stuff. And it says that half of them 10 years in ended up leaving because they're like, this is really hard to keep up with all these crops and stuff. It's like, well, yeah, because you don't have slaves.
Golly, dude.
There was this documentary that was dropped about the House of 200 Demons. So in 2014, Zach Bagans purchased this house, right?
Yeah, okay.
And he decided he was gonna investigate it. Obviously, you know, bro does that shit. But one specific thing that happened to Zach Bagans changed his whole life forever, bro.
What?
You see how he like locks himself
Into the place till dusk until dawn?
So he barricaded himself inside the house.
Oh, nah,
In the
okay.
house. And when he did that, this is what happened to him.
Back the fuck up.
Well, you saw the shadow, right?
Yeah.
So before he didn't wear glasses, after he saw that shadowy figure, he felt something in his eyes. So he ended up developing some sort of like condition that happened out of nowhere. The doctors can't even explain how he got it, but it made him see double vision and it fucked up his eyes, bro. And the only way that they could have possibly fixed it was with surgery, but if they did it, it could have led to him being blind. So now he has to wear prism glasses in order for him to see normal.
I never knew that.
And it was because he saw that fucking figure. Could have been the devil or some shit, bro.
That's fucked. I never knew that, bro.
And the crazy thing is that every single person that has gone into that house, bro,
Я абсолютно одна дома. Этот человек стоит неподвижно уже час. Он не шевелится и не разговаривает. Я не знаю, вызывать ли полицию или что мне делать.
Are you giving Daddy his tools?
August 1st, 2023, Gennett is sentenced to 25 years in prison. This is news in 2024 because Gennett and his attorneys are now appealing his sentence, stating that it was too harsh. Heaven's mom said, "We should be the ones to appeal because 25 years is not enough. She was just a little girl. He not only killed her, he tortured her, he R-worded her. The act is horrific. 25 years is not too harsh. 25 years is not enough. Look at how he's doing in prison. He's sentenced to 25 years, but he is fine. He's laying in prison, being fed. Men who are essaying and killing children are just happily eating food provided by the government and living happily." What's wild is, even that after he's proven guilty and sentenced to 25 years, people are blaming the mom. They're saying it's been a year already. People need to let this go. Some people are commenting it's the mother's fault for bringing a child into this world during unsafe times. The mother should also be essayed. The child deserved it. Who told her to give birth to a daughter first? Heaven's mom, she's not arguing, but she's trying to explain the situation, and she says, "As I told you, I work almost 24 hours and I raise my children alone. I have no family to support me. I am from the rural province and I got to where I am on my own." She basically lives her whole life working to support her family, and yet people are trying to blame her for what he did.
Skinwalkers don't exist, so I'm in the middle of the forest proving they don't exist by camping out near Skinwalker Hut in the middle of the forest. I used my Aztec death whistle to try to call them. Nothing was happening at this point, but nothing was going to prepare me for what was going to happen as soon as the sun was setting and, well, night fell upon me. Skinwalkers are supposed to be extremely evil and can track their prey for what can be over several years. So honestly, being out here completely alone after I've taunted Skinwalkers for a really long time is a bad idea. Honestly, I'm finding a bunch of evidence of broken trees, which is weird because I'm in the middle of nowhere, so it could be Sasquatch, Wendigo, or a Skinwalker. My plan is extremely simple. I'm going to venture into the forest as far as I possibly can, and then I'm going to come back to the Skinwalker Hut as soon as night falls and camp out and see if anything happens. Honestly, my mind feels like it's playing tricks on me right now. As soon as I got into this forest full of these really tall aspen trees, I felt like there was something watching me from up above. So I took a look, but honestly, I didn't see anything up there. Now, I've also been warned by locals out here that there's also a chance I could come across Wendigos. If you didn't know, Wendigos and Skinwalkers are very similar in the sense that they can shapeshift and they hunt their prey. Things are about to take a turn for the worse, though. Wendigos make this high-pitched sound that sounds like a bell, and well, take a listen to what I'm currently hearing. Something in the forest is whistling back to me, and I honestly have no idea what it is, so I'm going to do the logical thing and venture into the forest to try to find it. Take a listen to the enhanced audio clip here. If anyone knows what this is, please let me know, but for now I'm going to investigate and see if I can find the source of the noise.
I hope you're not driving and listening to this one. When I was growing up, I would occasionally ask my mom if she had any scary real-life stories she could scare me with. I thrived off that stuff. She chose not to mention this one until I was old enough to hear it. This story takes place in eastern Canada during the late 60s, when my now deceased grandmother, my mother's mother, was in her early 30s. She decided to drive to our town's convenience store after dark to pick up a couple of things. She had finally just managed to get her 4 children to sleep and left my grandfather to take over over while she hopped in the car and made the 10-minute drive. Back then, the road from their house to the store had very few neighbors and was mostly just woods on either side of the 2 lanes. After buying the couple things she needed, she left the store and jumped back into the car, pulling out on the road back home. A minute into the drive, she hears what sounds like newspaper rustling in the back of the car. Startled, she checks her rearview mirror to find out the cause of it. Instead of seeing the usual empty road or a set of headlights, reflected back was a man's face in the back seat. Scared to death, she instantly hit the brakes hard enough to shock this man, probably giving him whiplash, jumped out of the car and began screaming loud enough so people near the store could hopefully hear. Having this man's plans foiled, whatever his plans entailed, he took this opportunity to escape the car and run into the woods out of sight. After getting back to the store and calling the police, my grandmother found a cloth covered in chloroform in the back seat. Luckily, a couple from a house nearby heard my grandmother's screams, helped calm her down and took her home. My grandfather said that she was unable to speak for hours, only able to muster up the necessary details for the police, who were the ones who detected that it was chloroform on the cloth. Poor thing didn't drive for 6 months after the incident. The man was never caught. You should be more afraid of the living than the dead, because what the if you suffer from sleep paralysis, you might want to skip this video because this story is crazy. This girl says that when she turned 12 years old, she started having sleep paralysis episodes. She would go on to have them until she was like 17, and that is when the fucking craziest thing happened and the story I'm about to tell you. She lives at home with her mom, sister, and her aunt, so it's a household full of women. She says it was a Saturday and her mom used to always go to work really early, around 5 in the morning, and that same day the aunt and her other sister would go to church very early too. So just like every other Saturday, she woke up to hear her mom getting ready for work, and then maybe moments later she heard when her sister and aunt screamed to her, "Hey, we're leaving, I'm gonna lock the front door, but we'll be back." She said that she was still half asleep, so she believes that she was like, okay, like just screaming to her aunt, yeah, but she ended up just falling back to sleep because it was still really early. So as she's falling asleep, she said that she felt that awful sensation when you're about to go into a sleep paralysis episodes, and if you have ever had one, you know that fucking feeling, and it's disgusting. She said because she had had them so much, she figured out a way to get out of it before she falls into that sleep paralysis episode. She says that she needs to remain calm, and then she wakes herself up. She does this because she doesn't want to be like paralyzed where she can't move. She managed to wake herself up, and she just sat there like, oh, I really don't want to have a sleep paralysis episode right now. She was saying how tired she was and she didn't want to do it. She ends up falling asleep again, and again she's going into the sleep paralysis episode and she wakes herself up. But she says that every time she does it, she's getting deeper and deeper into that sleep paralysis episode where she feels like she almost cannot wake herself up from it because it's taking longer and longer. She says that the last time she manages to wake herself up again, she just starts crying and crying because she doesn't want to fall into the episode, but she's so tired. And she said that she knows that she feels this way just because she's bringing herself out of that sleep paralysis, but she was just so frustrated and she was crying. But as she's laying there awake, she starts hearing some footsteps coming down from the hallway. She figured that her aunt and sister might have been back from church because honestly she had been in and out of sleep paralysis that she lost track of time. When she heard those steps, she also heard that somebody came into her room, and when they did, she felt a hand over her head and a little girl's voice say, "Hey, calm down, don't cry." She thought it was her sister, and she ignored like the hand gesture, and she was like, "Leave me alone, I'm so tired, and let me go to sleep." When she says that, the hand immediately stopped touching her, and that is where she came to her senses. I got chills already. She's like, wait, my sister's not this lovey-dovey with me. She would never come in here and try to soothe me back to sleep as I'm crying. Like, not that her sister didn't love her, but she said her sister had never done something like this before. And she's there thinking like, why the hell did my sister just do that? And also, how did she know that I was just crying in here in the dark? So she opens her eyes, grabs her cell phone, and she sees that the time is 9 in the morning. And her aunt and sister were still at church around that time. So she's like, who the hell just did that? She's coming to the realization that there was someone behind her. And it wasn't her mom, it wasn't her aunt, and it was definitely not her sister. When she turned, she managed to see a little girl run out of her bedroom. She said the little girl had like a school uniform with 2 ponytails, and she didn't recognize that uniform or who this little girl could be. In that moment, she gets up to go follow that little girl because she believes someone had just broken into the house. She never thought it would be something paranormal because she had had so many sleep paralysis episodes episodes where she can like distinguish between real life and hallucinations that she may be having. As she's running towards the little girl, she says she started to hear somebody in the kitchen just like throwing pots and pans and opening cupboards and drawers, and it confirmed to her that someone was in there trying to steal. So she immediately runs to the kitchen, and when she gets there was nobody there. All of the windows were closed shut. The door that her aunt had told her she had locked was still locked. She was looking around and there was nothing in that house. So she decided to go outside, and she explains it that inside of the house was the weirdest vibes ever, but the only way that she can compare that vibe to anything is that same vibe she got whenever she was about to fall into sleep paralysis. So she sat outside with her puppy and waited until her mom got home. When her mom got home, she was like, "What is wrong with you? Why are you outside?" And she didn't want to tell her mom what happened. Like, she couldn't do it. And obviously her mom walked in and saw the kitchen, so she's like, "What the fuck? Like, what is going on here?" And she said that, "Oh, sorry, I got hungry and I didn't know what to do and I couldn't make my decision, so I just left everything where it was." She doesn't think her mom believed her, but she didn't question her any further, and a few days have passed since then. So she's laying in bed and she feels that sleep paralysis sensation again, but this time she woke herself up and switched positions. She says that sometimes when she did switch her sleeping positions, it would prevent those sleep paralysis from coming back as well. But unfortunately, this time it did not work. Unfortunately, the sleep paralysis episode finally got to her and she was paralyzed. She couldn't move, her eyes were open, and she could see that her bedroom door was left open and how a silhouette was starting to come into her room. She said that something was different about this sleep paralysis episode. As any other one, she couldn't move, but the feeling she was getting as the silhouette was coming in was a fear that she had never experienced before. She said that she felt when something got on her bed and started crawling towards her head, and as it got closer, she could finally see that it was that same little girl. She said that she then saw when that little girl got off the bed, came and stood next to her, and started caressing her head and face. She was so scared, but for some reason, she was able to speak in her sleep paralysis, and she looks at the girl and says, "What can I do for you? What do you want from me?" And that's when the little girl says,
"I want my mommy. Can you help me find her?"
Within her sleep paralysis, she looked at the girl and said, "I don't know your mom. I don't know how I can help you." And that's when the little girl started screaming louder and louder,
"Help me find my mom. Where is my mom? Help me find my mom."
She said that she was so frightened that she did something that she was never able to accomplish in her other sleep paralysis episodes, and she started praying. She could feel herself sweating and crying, and she was just praying and praying until she was finally able to get out of that sleep paralysis episode. The days would pass, and she said that she would still have dreams about this girl, and she would have sleep paralysis episodes with the girl in them. However, she did say that all of this stopped one day when her aunt decided to visit her. Her aunt got to her house, and her mom said, "Hey, you need to go to your room because I'm going to talk to your aunt about something." But she was so sus about it, so she hid and listened in on their conversation. She overheard when her aunt was telling her mom, "Hey, I went to our uncle's house, and remember that tree that was dying? Well, I dug it up, and I also dug up a lot of the garden that he had. I dug up so much that I got to the roots, and the weirdest thing was that I found bones under the garden, but they don't seem to be animal bones. They seem to be human." And her mom said, "We need to call the police. Like, we need to call the police and have them look at these bones." The police confirmed that the bones belonged to a little 6-year-old girl, and they believed it was a case that was very old where a little girl had gone missing a long time ago. The police officers mentioned that the little girl's parents always looked for her. Unfortunately, they couldn't give them much more information other than that. She obviously put 2 and 2 together and was like, could this have been the girl that I'd seen in my sleep paralysis episode? Could she had gone missing? Could my uncle have done something to her? She says that it was confirmed to her after the police went and found all of her bones because she never saw that little girl ever again. This was also when she decided to finally tell her mom what had been going on, because she says that from age 12 to 17, she would see random people in her hallucinations, and sometimes she would talk to them, they would tell her things, but she always thought they were just hallucinations, nothing more than that. But when this little girl talked to her, shit happened in real life where they found a body and she never saw her again, it brought concern to her that maybe this wasn't just sleep paralysis, paralysis. Her mom actually took her very seriously and decided that she needed to get her daughter help. Unfortunately, it wasn't until she was 19 years old where they found this man who was a spiritual guide and had his third eye open. So she ended up having a session with the man who confirmed to her that she was actually Clairvoyance, I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm reading it in Spanish, so I'm not sure. The whole time she thought it was sleep paralysis, which it was. However, the people who had been coming in to talk to her in her sleep paralysis were actual dead people. This spiritual guide told her that she was born with this, and they had no idea. The man advised her that he could close her third eye for her, but it would only last 5 years. And within those 5 years, she was never going to see anything or hear anything or even maybe not have sleep paralysis. Her and her mom agreed that she should have those 5 years because the time that she'd had from age 12 to 19 had been horrible. She'd never had a peaceful night of sleep. She claims that after closing that third eye, she hadn't had a sleep paralysis episode since then. She does say that she had had moments where she still feels like something strange, but it was never to that intense amount of like energy that she had before. However, in a few months, 3 months to be exact, is when those 5 years is gonna come to an end. I got this story from Relatos de la Noche. I'm gonna put the episode here and the time of where it starts. It is in Spanish, so if you know Spanish, please go listen to it there.
5 films to ruin your day. My name is Chris. This is Big Fat Cult. Let's go. First up, nothing bad can happen, but spoiler alert, it does. A devout Christian teen gets taken in by a family who, well, keep him and do horrendous stuff to him to test his faith. It's bleakly uncomfortable, shocking and skin-crawling, but very well made all the same. The Innocents is a very good advertisement for birth control and a reminder that most kids are in fact the spawn of Satan, particularly this group of hooligans in this Norwegian film that is jaw-droppingly brutal. It is stunningly made and acted, but really, really unpleasant. Gus Van Sant's Elephant is one of those films that sneaks up on you and delivers one hell of a gut punch at the end. Based on the true story of the Columbine high school shooting, this follows a recluse teenager who plots a horrendous event. Really chilling and worryingly still very relevant today. The Lodge is a disturbingly creepy and uneasy psychological horror that is a slow burn study of isolation, grief and trauma. A lot of similarities to Hereditary, so if you like that kind of messed up family dynamic with skin crawling atmosphere, this one is very much for you. And finally, Dead Girl is just plain grim and wrong. A couple of teenage boys find a zombified woman chained up and, well, use her for their sick enjoyment. One of the few films to genuinely make me feel ill. It is shocking, nasty and unpleasant and will certainly put an end to any good mood you might have had. So there we go. Have you seen any of these? What did you think of them? Let me know in the comments and make sure to like and follow for loads more movie, TV, horror and pop culture content. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye for now.
Remember we had that solar eclipse a couple months back? Talked about things that could possibly happen. Do you know what St. Louis was doing? What? They are currently doing a drill for a 8.6 magnitude earthquake where they're suspecting the New Madrid fault line to shift, being a catastrophic earthquake.
Where's the Madrid fault line?
Was it Kansas or Missouri?
You think we're all right though?
No. I definitely think it's going to happen. That split, there's like water where the solar eclipse went, and it goes right over the New Madrid fault line as well.
What would happen? Hypothetical situation, it splits in half, right? And there actually is a body of water. Do you think it's chaos? Like, do you think it's east versus west? It's like everyone for themselves?
Think about supply trains, right? Like to get supplies to the west side or the east side, there's going to be a giant gap.
They think it's going to be the whole nation or just like
they think it's going to be a giant split. Like, I mean, catastrophic, like something we've never seen before. There's also fault lines in Wyoming, which has people a little freaked out because of the super volcano that is Yellowstone.
Ooh. Yeah. And what a way to go. I want nature to take us out, not nuclear warfare.
We're very vulnerable.
Yeah.